Hi, good evening, everyone. I am McKenna, and I'm the owner of Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're really excited about Camilla Trinchieri's series that is set in Italy. The first book last year was a huge hand-selling favorite. Everyone who wanted a little escape during the pandemic, we gave that book to. And the second book certainly does not disappoint. We're also joined by Terry Shames, who's one of our favorite Texas authors. So it'll be nice to have these two ladies in conversation tonight. If you are interested in watching more virtual events, we have lots. I think next week we've got about, 16 authors or something. So make sure to check murderbooks.com for our full event listing. Or we have all of the August events up on Facebook right now. So they're under our Facebook event listings. If you have any questions, you can put those in the live chat on YouTube or, excuse me, my allergies are acting up this evening, so I keep clearing my throat. Or in the comments here on Facebook. So don't be shy. Everyone loves answering questions, and we'll get to those later on in the evening. I've also already put a link in the comments and the live chat with more information about both authors, their books, and of course, if you are so inclined, you can order them from us at that link. Okay, so starting off, we have Camilla Trinchieri. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. Like I said, I'm not just saying it. We absolutely love this series, and I'm so excited to be talking with you tonight or sitting back and listening to you talk tonight because we have put it in the hands of so many readers. So I'm going to go ahead and do your official bio really quickly, and then we'll bring on Terry. Camilla Trinchieri worked for many years dubbing films in Rome with directors including Federico Fellini, Pietro Germi, Franco Rossi, Lina Wertmu, and Luchino Visconti. Apologies for all name butchering that just happened.
You did very well.
She immigrated to the U.S. in 1980 and received her MFA in creative writing from Columbia University. Under the pseudonym Camilla Crespi, she's published 8 mysteries. As Camilla Trinkieri, she's the author of The Price of Silence and 2 Nico Doyle mysteries. And as I mentioned, she's here tonight to talk about The Bitter Taste of Murder, which is her brand new book. We also have Terry Shames here with us. Good evening, Terry. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here and doing this. I'm excited to hear you two in conversation. Terry Shames is the author of the Samuel Craddock mysteries, A Killing at Cotton Hill, The Last Death of Jack Harbin, Dead Broke in Jarrett Creek, A Deadly Affair at Bobtail Ridge, The Necessary Murder of Nonie Blake, An Unsettling Crime for Samuel Craddock, and A Reckoning in the Backcountry. She's a member of the Mystery Writers of America and Sisters in Crime. And like I said, we including her in our list of local authors as well. So anyway, I'm going to go away. I'm going to let you two talk. If there are any issues, just say my name. I'll pop right back on. And for those of you watching, don't be shy with the questions. I'll see you in a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Camilla,
Hi,
it's so wonderful to see you in person sort of in person, after having read your first 2 books, the Nico Doyle books. And I liked the first one a lot. And I have to say, I loved the second one. There was something so intimate about it. I just really enjoyed it. So I think if we should kick off, maybe with you reading a little passage from it. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear it in your voice.
I'm going to read from the beginning, although I cut out some of the, there was some extra, so I didn't want to go on and confuse the reader with all these characters, etc.
Sure.
So it's okay. My mysteries take place in a small town in Tuscany called Gravigna. So it starts with Gravigna, small town in the county hills of Tuscany. A Tuesday in June, 7:50 a.m. Ex-homicide detective Nico Doyle parked his red 500 Fiat under a cloudless sky that promised another hot day, and followed his dog across the deserted main piazza. At the far corner, Bar all'Angolo, open since 6 a.m., would offer him breakfast. One wag rushed into the cafe through the open door, nose immediately canvassing the floor, followed by Nico. Sandro, one of the 2 owners, who was manning the cash register, as always, looked up. Ciao, Nico. Salve, Nico replied. He walked to the cash register. How goes it? So far the day is good, Sandro replied with a smile. He was a good-looking, lanky man somewhere in his mid-40s with a small earring shining in one ear. Jimmy, Sandro's husband, in charge of the espresso machine, started Nico's Americano. Nico walked over to his usual table by the open French doors and sat down. Having breakfast at Bar all'Angolo was part of the daily routine he had adopted early on. It gave his life some needed order after burying Rita, his Italian wife, next to her parents in the town cemetery almost 2 years ago. After the funeral, he'd gone back to his home in the Bronx, but he had no wife and no job after being forced to retire from the New York Police Department. With nothing to hold him back in New York, it made sense to go to Rita's hometown, where her niece and her family welcomed him with open arms. Buongiorno, said a voice with a Neapolitan accent. Nico turned around. Maresciallo dei Carabinieri, Salvatore Perillo, of the Italian paramilitary police, stood outside the open French doors. He was a short, stocky man with shiny black hair beginning to gray at the temples, a chiseled, handsome face with large, dark, liquid eyes, thick lips, and an aquiline nose. He was out of uniform as usual, wearing jeans, a perfectly pressed blue linen shirt, and despite the heat, his beloved leather jacket flung over his shoulder. Nico smiled, glad to see the man who had become a good friend since getting him involved in a murder investigation last September. Perillo sat down next to Nico. Espresso for you, Salvatore, Sandro asked. Perillo raised first two fingers, then a thumb, which meant his 2 coffees would be corrected with grappa. The inclusion of grappa meant things weren't going well with the Maresciallo. That bad? Nico asked. I will happily tell you. This week, that is yesterday, Signor Michele Mantelli drove into Greve, found that the parking spots in Piazza Matteoni were occupied, parked his Jaguar in the middle of the piazza, locked it, and went off to lunch. Of course, one of my men called the car removal service. What followed was Mantelli stomping into the station, preceded by a storm of insults directed at me. It was clear I had no brains. I did not know who he was. Headquarters in Florence was going to hear about this. I would be demoted, and on and on. You wouldn't believe the fury of this man. Who is he? Nico asked. A ball breaker. Mario Mantelli is considered a famous critic of Italian wines, said to have the power to make or ruin a wine. He owns a very successful bi-yearly journal called Vino Veritas, written in Italian and English and distributed internationally. Also something called a blog, which comes out monthly with thousands of followers. The Pied Piper and his rats, I say. If he only knew he is the head rat. I'm sorry he got to you. Where's he from? Milan, but he has an old villa in Montefiorale. How are Aldo and Cinzia? Perillo asked. Aldo Ferri, who owned the Feriello vineyard, had let Nico rent a small rundown stone farmhouse next to his olive grove. Fine. They invited me over for dinner last week. Spaghetti all'arrabbiata. Just as good as Cinzia's carbonara. Nico bunched his fingers to his lips and kissed them, the Italian way of saying delicious. I convinced her to give me the recipe. Was there any tension between Cinzia and Aldo? Not that I saw. The couple walked in and ordered from Sandro in French tinted Italian. Perillo heard laughter and turned to look at the young couple. They were hugging each other, mussing up each other's hair. Watching them brought back the scene he witnessed last night. Luckily, he hadn't been seen. Perillo felt a sudden pang of remorse. Was it fair to tell Nico? Cinzia and Aldo were Nico's friends. Maybe there was an explanation for what he'd seen. He would only be spreading malicious gossip. Nico watched Perillo's expression change. Why are you asking about Cinzia and Aldo? No reason. Just that I haven't seen them around in some time. Perillo stood up. I get better. I better get back to the station. Be well and enjoy life. That's it.
Thank you so much. Hearing you read it is just such a wonderful pleasure because you have all the accents and it just takes me right back to Greve in Chianti, that beautiful area. You know, I was going to ask this later, but you talked about the arrabbiata, and there's so much about food and wine in these things. And every time you introduce the food, I keep thinking, do you cook Italian food yourself? I mean, is this something that is in you, or is it just something you remember from being there?
Well, I'm Italian. I'm an Italian citizen, and it's therefore in my genes.
Yes.
My father loved to cook. My Italian father loved to cook. And yes, so it comes absolutely naturally. And I do cook a lot. Now I've gotten a little bored with constantly cooking. You know, when I first came to America, the second time when I came in 1980, I didn't have any money. I had come back from a bad situation in Italy, a personal situation. And I had nothing. I thought I had nothing to offer the few friends I still had from the old days when I went to Barnard. And I thought the only thing I can do is cook for them. That's what I can bring. And so that's sort of the way my love of cooking, it was something I could offer. I felt I didn't have other things to offer because I had no money. I couldn't take them out to a restaurant or anything like that. And so to me, cooking is in the genes, actually.
What a gift to give to your friends, though. And I have to say that when I lived in Italy for about a year and a half, and I was determined to learn how to do the Italian cooking, and my landlord gave me such a wonderful gift when he said, "Terry, you're like an Italian cook." Brava.
Brava.
Oh, I love doing that.
Well, you also taught, you mentioned food too, and you know, I just read Killing at Cotton Hill, which I'm going to show to the readers. In fact,
that's so
I
cool.
absolutely love. Well, because we'll talk about voice, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about voice, which is, and Samuel Craddock. I don't know why he's not called Sam, but that's another discussion.
I'll tell you why.
And you know, you talk about food. It's a very different kind of food.
It's very different.
But it's part of who people are. You know, what they eat. And your story is also in a small town, happens to be in Texas, which is rather different, you know, far away from Tuscany, but still it's the same idea.
But you get the same feel that
exactly.
people are who they are.
Yes, I mean, everybody, you know, we all eat every day.
Yes,
usually 3 miles, if we're lucky. Now, unfortunately, quite a few people don't eat every day, but
yes.
Yeah.
But barbecue is the thing in
where you were from,
in Texas, where I actually don't live now.
Yeah, I know you live in Berkeley.
Well, I normally live in Berkeley, except we just moved to Los Angeles a week ago. Okay. So I'm now talking to you from Los Angeles. It's almost impossible to believe that, yes, here I am. So let me ask you, you had written several books before. So what gave you the inspiration for Nico Doyle?
Well, I don't know about Nico. I can tell you about the place.
Oh, okay.
Stuart, my husband, his name is Stuart. We were on vacation. We had taken 2 weeks off to go from Siena to Florence. And we were doing all the small towns from Siena to Florence, which isn't that big a distance.
No, it isn't.
And one of the towns was Panzano.
I know that town.
And which has nothing to make it special for tourists except for 3 incredible restaurants.
Yes.
And we were spent a week there, and all of a sudden I just said, this place is for me. This is me. I feel it. I feel it in me. I want to write a mystery here. And that's
Isn't that amazing? Oh, that's amazing. How wonderful.
How Nico Doyle came about. I know one of your questions was, you know, about speaking. You write from a male point of view, Samuel Craddock. Yes. And I write from various male point of view, the Maresciallo and also Daniele. And I guess I've always wanted to write from a man's point of view. I did another Soho Press book, was The Price of Silence, where it was very much women, but there was a father who also had his say, and he wanted to have his say. And this, I don't know, it just came naturally to me. I don't know where Nico comes from. I don't think you know where your characters come from, probably.
It's like magic.
Exactly. They just all of a sudden enter your head and they say, I want to talk. Will you please listen? And I listen. That's what I do. And I'm sure that's what you do too.
I often feel as if when I sit down to write about Samuel Craddock, that I'm looking over his shoulder and watching through his eyes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, it's a wonderful feeling.
Yes.
That you are, I'm listening. I'm just listening. I don't feel I'm watching over, I'm just listening to him. What do you want to tell me? What's your beef? What's your
That's a
problem?
wonderful, that is a wonderful thing to say to aspiring writers, is to listen to your characters and what do you want to say?
Yes.
That's a very good phrase.
And sometimes in the past, in other books, I've tried to force because I want to go in a certain direction. And then I've discovered that no, you can't do that. You can't force it.
They know where they want to go.
I don't know if it's ever happened to you where you decide that the killer is so-and-so. No, Joe is the killer. It's him. And then you get to meet Joe and you realize Joe would never kill anyone. And all of a sudden you say, oh, shoot, I'm stuck because I was so sure that Joe was. That happened to me several times. Just happened in this last book that I just finished.
Really?
See, I have a wonderful dog that's come to visit.
Well, in a way, I think that's one of the things that makes the book so really wonderful to read is that it may have been a surprise to you who did the actual deed, but it's also you carry the reader with your uncertainty.
Yeah.
And, instead of everybody saying, oh, I know who did it, and that's the end of that, it really there's a strong feeling. And then there's some other things that go in toward the end. I think it's a wonderful book.
Thank you.
The descriptions of food and wine are exquisite. And I mean, I could really smell and taste this. How much research do you do for the books? Now, I actually read that you were not able to go, of course, during COVID to the Greville area and to Pienza. Is that the name of the town that you love so much?
No, Panzano. Pienza is a very good town. Wonderful cheese.
Panzano. Yes, exactly. Pienza.
Pienza.
Pienza has the wonderful cheese. Yes. Okay. So
no, I didn't research. Okay, I made friends, and he's become a very good friend with the Maresciallo, the local Maresciallo.
Oh,
I knew nothing about how the Carabinieri work. I was hoping it was the police because at least it's much more known. It's easier to find out things about the Italian police than it is about the Carabinieri. And we become Giovanni Serra is his name, Maresciallo Giovanni Serra. From Sardinia, and he's become a very good friend, and he answers all my questions. So I say, well, if this happens, what would be, and he tells me. I am taking some liberties because the Italian justice system is very, very complicated.
Oh, so complicated.
And I'm allowing the Maresciallo to do more work than I think he would actually be able to. I think they would call in the higher ups. In some cases, but hey, it's fiction, and I love my Maresciallo. I feel my Maresciallo has nothing to do with Giovanni, who is very different. Maresciallo is from my Maresciallo is from Naples. I know a lot of Neapolitans. I love Naples. They have and also Maresciallo now is having problems. I mean, he's, I don't know. It's just so wonderful.
He is a real character. And in fact, he may be my favorite character. I have such a crush on him. He struts around, but then he has this actual feeling of not being so sure of himself some of the time.
Yes.
And that's very touching. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Well, my favorite is actually, I mean, I adore Nico, obviously, is Daniele, the young brigadiere from Venice.
Oh, I love him. He is
shy,
wonderful.
blushes too often, and he's coming onto his own. I mean,
Yes, he is.
Yeah, as you know in this book, yeah. First,
I'm worried.
He's only 21 years old or something. Yeah, no.
Really, he's just a baby.
It's so much fun. Isn't it fun to write?
It is.
Terry, I mean, isn't it fun to be with these people?
It's fun to discover them. Yes.
And to listen to them and to say, okay, it's like having friends.
It really is. And I think that there's a certain sort of genius about putting that together in a book, especially when it's set in a foreign area. You know, American readers don't necessarily know Italy, but by the time they finish this book, they feel like they can stride into this little town and say, oh, I know all these people, because you really make them very intimate. You really bring them out one by one. Each person is very individual. So let me ask you this. Did you think that flows for you? How much editing do you have to do? Do you just sort of write the book? In fact, let's step back a bit. Do you plot out a book before you start, or you just start writing?
I have no idea where I'm going.
Okay.
I don't want to have an idea. I remember when I first started writing mysteries, I went to some mystery convention or something and said, oh, you have to outline. I'm mysteries, you have to have the pairings. You have to. So I said, oh, is that what I'm supposed to do? I'll do that. So I outlined. It was 12 pages of outline. And then I started writing the book. And I said, but I've already written it. I'm not interested. The outline took away that listening, that surprise quality that you get when you're writing, which is what makes writing wonderful, is the surprise. You don't know what you're going to write. I mean, yes, you want to do a scene in Bar all'Angolo, you want to go there because you want to talk to these people who are the owners of the bar. But that's all you know. But you don't really know what's going to happen, and you
don't know what they're going to say when you get
never outline. I mean, it depends on the person. Obviously, it depends on the writer. Sure, there's some people who are meticulous and then can make it come alive. I can't make it come alive if I've outlined it, because it's already been written. There are no surprises.
Do you get stuck ever? Do you get stuck, and what do you do?
I stop writing. I pick up a book that is not a mystery. I pick up as a literary novel, which is beautifully written, and I get excited by reading it about writing, and that it all comes out again. When I get stuck on a sentence, which can happen, like what next? I go downstairs. I take something out of the refrigerator. I have a pad and a pencil waiting. I eat something, and I get that first sentence out. Once I got the first sentence, I've got it. So I go back.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard someone say that they go to the refrigerator and eat something and have a pad and pencil right there, because that will spur their writing.
Yes. I sit down a minute and you eat, and it's it's a moment of let's relax a minute. You're eating something you like, obviously.
Yeah.
And then the sentence pops, and it's never not popped in my head. So I've been very lucky. There will be a day when the sentence doesn't pop, and then you just give it up. You go away. You say, okay, I'm not writing today. I don't have to write. I don't have to write tomorrow. It will come. I trust myself, or my whatever ghosts I have in my head, to tell me when it's time to write again.
Really, that's wonderful. So if you get stuck on a plot point, though, like for example, it suddenly has. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this has never happened.
No, it's happened. It's happened.
Yeah.
You just, you distract yourself with other things, and meanwhile, you know that in the back of your brain, it's going boom, 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 boom. I've got to solve it. And eventually, it comes.
Exactly.
I don't think you can force it. I think it's a mistake to try to force it, at least. And then sometimes when I'm stuck on a plot point, I'll talk to my husband. I said, please hear me out. You don't have to actually listen. But by talking to someone else out loud, I clear my own brain of whatever the little knot that I've come across comes out. And sometimes that helps.
Yeah, I find that a walk helps me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I actually once took a long walk and said, you can't go home until you figure this out.
And you obviously did.
I did.
How long a walk? 10 miles, 20
Well,
miles?
no, it was my usual walk, but I kept going up the hill until I finally said, I know what. But yeah, that's so you don't outline and you just keep going until, so you get to the end, and then what kind of editing do you do? Do you have a lot of editing to do? What?
No, I don't think so. Who knows with this last one. What I do is I put it away for a month.
Okay.
Completely forget about it, read other things, have fun, relax. And then I pick it up and I read it out loud. And possibly in one sitting. Like you start early in the morning and I read it. Well, I was also, when I was much younger, I wanted to be an actress. So I love to read out loud.
I do too. I know what you mean, yeah.
And that's when you catch the clunkers. I mean, of course you see the typos and all that, but you catch the clunkers. You say, and also you'll say, what the hell did I mean by that sentence? What was I trying to say? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't belong. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't have that. And then I see if I get bored.
Oh, that's a really good point. Yeah.
And then I went, wait a minute, there are too many words here. I tend to sometimes overwrite. And I say something I actually think it's an Italian thing of mine.
It most certainly.
I'm putting more because, that's Italians overwrite constantly. And so I go and I try to clean it up. If I get bored, if I'm not bored, if I'm enjoying myself, it's okay.
Yeah.
So
in
a week of cleaning it up, and then of course you send it to the editor, and of course they have their say.
Yeah.
Which is usually, I've so far I've had a wonderful editor. So I have not.
I have something else to ask you, and this is much more involved. A lot of people, when they read books that do head hopping, like sometimes in one paragraph, you will have a character say something, and you will say something about their state of mind or something from their point of view, and 2 sentences later, you're in someone else's point of view. I was halfway through the book before I realized you were doing that, and
that's nice.
Yeah, it's a real no for some authors, but you do it seamlessly. Is this just the way it comes?
It is totally natural. Yeah. If I've got a group of people or 2 people, like very often it's Tilde and Nico, and he's got his feelings there, and so why should I eliminate one of their feelings? They're both there. They're thinking. I guess I'm a little I'm watching and I'm listening to them, and I'm listening. That's again, it goes into the listening factor, that I'm listening to them. And yes, I remember one friend who loved the book but had difficulties with that. I said, I'm sorry, it just comes naturally to me. She wants to say something, or she's thinking something. When somebody else says something and he's thinking something, why shouldn't I include that?
So your editor is able to.
They've never protested that.
Wow,
I've never gotten protested on that one. No.
Yeah, that is.
One reader did, but that's.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe
one out of how many?
100 readers protested, but I want to write that way. I want to be with these 2 people and listen to what they have to say to me.
So let's talk about your characters a little bit more. Like I said, I'm really fond of Maresciallo Pirello. And you said that he was not like the Maresciallo that you know.
Not at all.
So how did you come up with him? Who is he?
Well, I know a lot of Neapolitans. I don't know who he is, except how he presents. Again, I don't start knowing who he is until he says something. In the first book, I remember he came out of a car.
Mm-hmm.
It was driven by his brigadiere, because God forbid he should drive the car. And I just saw this, I saw him. I saw this guy, a little and vain.
Peacock.
He's vain, and he's a slight peacock. And then he spoke, and then he had this sort of flowery way of speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And he just came. I wish I could tell you more, but I can't.
So you don't really go to people that you actually know for your characters.
No.
What about your minor characters? Anybody in there that you can say, oh, I know who that is?
No, I can't. I once tried. I tried to see someone I really liked, and I thought she was fabulous, and I was going to put her in a book, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't depict the real person she wasn't real.
Yeah.
I have to let her. I have to let the people do their own thing, and I can't put someone in that I know into a character. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'm not capable of doing it. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, it works. So let's talk about Nico a little bit. So, I mean, his background is very interesting, and you weave that in very subtly. He's still mourning his wife, which is interesting because in my first book, my protagonist is mourning.
Yes, Jean, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He comes back to Jean a lot.
Yeah, well, it's been a very short time since she died, so yes, he does.
Well, also with Nico, it's only been in the first book only a year, and maybe a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. So Nico is a man of honor, and you find out a little bit about his past, that he's got not exactly a shady past,
no,
but a little bit of a blemish on his past. So how did you figure that one?
I wanted him to have, he has the wound of his wife. I wanted to show what kind of man he was, and what he did in the past, I don't consider a blemish.
Yeah.
It's considered a blemish according to the law enforcement.
Exactly. That was.
He did a no, but he acted out to save someone who had been miserably hurt, and he is acting out of who he was, his own background, because he had a mother who had been abused by his very violent, awful father.
Yeah.
So that's what prompted him to break the law, because it brought him. He knew what this woman had gone through, and he was going to help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're starting to give him a little bit of romance in this,
yes.
Which of course immediately the reader says, "Oh, where is this going to go?" And so I'm looking forward to the next book where you might. Yeah, who knows? Who knows with Nellie, beautiful Nellie, the painter.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's just it, is that all of these characters, each of these characters has such a distinctive personality, but also a distinctive role in the community. And I think that is so important, that you have all of these people who have their own role.
Well, you do that too.
Yeah.
You do that exactly in the Killing of Cotton Hill. And I ordered the prequel because I was dying to read the prequel, and it didn't come in time. Amazon defeated me totally. It's supposed to deliver the next day. To hell with it.
Well, that's
when I go back to New York, it will be waiting for me.
That's a book.
You're doing exactly the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's what makes people really like these books is getting to know the characters, getting to know.
Well, I learned a lot from Louise Penny.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
I love her books. I'm not interested. I will be confessed. Forgive me, Louise. I'm not interested in her plots. I am interested in her people.
Yeah.
And and also it has a lot to do with my background. I'm a diplomat's brat, and we used to,
really?
And yes, my father was an Italian diplomat, and we used to every 4 years change city, change language, change friends. So I got to be, first of all, an observer, because when you go into a new place, you have to see, how am I going to fit in here? How does this work? What's going on here? And I call it being on the edge of the carpet looking in. And I think that's what made me a writer. The fact that, and so So people and characters, I learned to observe them because either I wasn't sure of myself. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be one of the guys or one of the girls. And so you have to watch. You have to listen again. Listen to these people and who they are, and see, can they be friends? Can I be with them?
Mm-hmm.
Who are they? Because it's a new country. Every time you went, and I mean a new country, not just actual country, but a new country when you go into any new place. It's a new country if you don't know the people.
Yes,
And
exactly.
you have to learn how to fit in or not fit in, not depending on how you feel about these people.
Well,
So I
it's
think that
interesting.
helps. I don't know how you got your writing chops from, knowing, but certainly mine and my fact of, listening to characters has a lot to do with my background.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Nico and Samuel both have the same sort of thing, and that is that they are observers like we are observers. And I think that's what a main character does. And if they are in law enforcement,
And also they care, but Samuel cares a lot, and so does Nico.
They have a feeling of responsibility for the people in their community. Yeah. That's wonderful. So let's see. I'm just going to go through my notes here and make sure I'm getting everything. You have a feeling of interconnectedness with people that I think is very interesting. It's not just that each of them is someone who comes out at you as a person, but that they all have these woven things. And when I lived in Italy, I noticed so much that is really true of people there. I remember once getting on an airplane coming back from, I forgot where I was coming back from, either Paris or London. And I got up and I was there waiting to go to Florence. And a woman came up to me and she said, do you speak Italian? And I said, yes. And we were speaking Italian. And she said, can I sit with you? I have to be able to talk to people.
Because she was nervous.
Well, she said, I'm Italian. I have to talk to people. By the time we got there, she had invited me to her house for dinner. And we were she was just, and I saw that so often in Italy. When I went back to the community after I left, I came back and I walked into a couple of the stores and people ran out from behind and embraced me and Signora, tornata. Yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. So you get that sense in your books. I really like that. So tell me about your other books. I mean, are you ever going to write anything in that? Or you?
No, I'm getting on in years.
Yeah, we all.
And I love being with Nico. I did write. Soho Press, The Price of Silence was a book, which was a mystery, but it was a book that was much more than a mystery because it was about a family. And then I wrote something that was not mentioned. I wrote what I call my mother book. It's called Seeking Alice. I had an American mother with whom I did not live because she was shortly after my birth diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia.
Oh.
And one year, I just decided that I needed to write about this woman that I did not know. I mean, later on in the years met her, and she even moved to Rome after my father died. So I would see her on a fairly regular basis, but it was not a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed to clear that up. I needed to, and I realized all this after I wrote the book, by the way. I did not know that I was doing this because I needed to make peace with this relationship that did not exist. What I wrote was a book about a woman who, because my mother was in the war, she was an American stuck in Prague, Czechoslovakia, which was overrun by Germans. And it was because I went to a therapist once and mentioned my mother. And he said, oh my God, it must have been so terrible for her as an American being in a country that was overrun by Germans during the war. And I never thought of that. I don't know how you feel about your mother, but I thought of her as a mother, not as a woman.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
all
I
of a
think
sudden I
not
needed to
having her
just,
with you, you wouldn't have thought of her as a
yeah,
woman.
and so I wanted to explore that, and I wrote about from two points of view, the daughter and about this woman who has disappeared. And
Now, you wrote this
it
under a
was,
different name, is that right?
no, it's under Camilla Trinchieri, and it's the
Okay.
proudest thing I've ever will write, or because, and then after I wrote it. Unfortunately, my mother died before
Mm.
she could read it, although she would probably have said hogwash. But I realized it was my saying, I understand what you went through, and it was my memoriam to her. And I'm very proud, and I worked, it took me 20 years to finish it.
Wow. Wow.
50 million, you know, when you're writing from a painful gut, it takes time. So, and I'm very, very proud of that book. But interesting enough, it wasn't even mentioned. Okay.
Well, what's the name of it again?
Seeking Alice.
Seeking Alice. I'm glad that you did mention it.
Published by a university press.
I see. Yeah. So, are you going to write another Nico novel?
Yes, I am. We're going to Pansano September 14th for 2 weeks.
Oh,
And so I get to have dinner with my maresciallo and my other friends that I've made, friends at the bar owners, all of them. Everything is wonderful. And yes, I'm going to write, but I'm going to take, I need a break.
Yeah.
Because with the COVID, you know, I wrote this one, and then I finally finished the other night. I finished the third one. And I need to also, because I don't want it to become by rote. You know, you need.
When is the third one coming out? I didn't know there was.
I haven't delivered it to my publisher yet. I just finished it Sunday night, so I have to do. I don't have a month's time to put it aside, but I'm going to do 2 weeks time. Then I do, and then beginning of September, I promised them I would deliver it. So I will deliver it, and then I'll go off, and then they'll do their, you know, Yazanita will do her editing, and then when I come back, we'll argue or not, probably not.
Do you have a possible date for the publication of it?
Well, next summer, definitely they want to do summer, you know, because you know how it is. They want to do the hardcover, and then a year later, the hardcover becomes a paperback, and they would like to have a new book ready to go with the paperback of the previous book. So
Yeah. Do you have an agent that you work with?
No, I've given up on agents ages ago.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the way they treat us as if we were a cheese in the supermarket. And I get angry that if it were not for our writing it, they wouldn't have a job. So at least have the courtesy of responding. Some don't even bother to respond. I find that unconscionable, and I just say, ciao. I'm out of here. And I'm lucky because, you know, Soho Press, I just submitted it because they had already published a book of mine earlier, The Price of Silence. So, and they said I couldn't submit a mystery without an agent, but I wrote, you know, your mother published my other book. The publisher died, Laura died a few years ago.
Yes.
And her daughter has taken over. And so of course, because I had been published, so I got lucky. It's not that it was
wonderful, and I'm not surprised that they published this book because they publish really good books.
Well, they like to publish also mysteries that take place in foreign lands.
They do,
yes.
I have friends with Soho and I esteem them highly.
Okay.
So let me ask you this: what is your least favorite part of writing? Do you love it all?
Well, the least favorite part is when the beginning of a chapter doesn't come. That's, you know, and that's where I have trouble. And I go, and sometimes I will sit to write a paragraph to begin a chapter or begin a new scene. I shouldn't even say a chapter, a new scene. It doesn't come right away. And I can be sitting there for 3 hours. And I've written lines, and then you check, and then lines, and you check. And that's the part that sort of goes, ah! You know, you want to, yeah. My favorite part, let's talk about my favorite
Yes,
part, which
yes.
is the editing part, the end. You know, you've got your material. It's like you've got your food. Now, you know, then you know, okay, I'll add a little salt here. I'll do a little I'll add a little tomato sauce there. And that's how I picture. But you've got the main, you've got the goods. The goods are out there. They just need to be made better. And that's fun. That's fun. It's much more relaxing. You don't have to come up with brand new ideas. You just have to mold. I'm into ceramics right now. I'm doing It's my hobby. And that's what it is. You push, boom.
You're not the only author I know who does that. Yeah, I like to paint. So
I used to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, just keeping a little something different.
Opens up your brain. Also, the wonderful thing about painting is that you stroke and then you stroke, and it may be lousy, but you see it.
Well, I only learned that from Kiki Parenti, who I took lessons from in Italy.
Because, you know, in a book, you don't know.
You know, exactly. You don't know.
Sometimes it takes years to know, to have the full picture. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I see that McKenna said that she has some questions for us.
Okay.
So, McKenna, why don't you come in and give us a question or two?
All right, perfect. So we have a couple questions from Leslie. The first one is, these are both new authors for me. How do you come up with ideas for your stories? So let's start with Camilla.
That's a very hard question to answer. They pop in. That's all I can tell you. I mean, I know that sort of sounds unfair, but it is the truth. They pop in. For instance, just to give you an example, with the Italian, with the Nico series, the town popped into me. I have, it's very, what my sense, I think my strong point is sense of place. Again, because of my background. So you have to know where you are and what you're doing. And that's how the idea came. Did Nico come up because of the town? No. Did the Maresciallo Perillo come? No. But all of a sudden there was this town and I wanted to bring it to life. Mm-hmm. And that's how I got my idea. Then in another book, I remember called The Price of Silence, I saw a mother with a small child in the Washington Square Park. I live in the Village in New York. And they were looking at each other with such adoration, such beautiful love. And then my very, very weird mind said, but what if? And that one began a book. Of what if this beautiful love gets parted? So, you know, you never know when it's going to come. So don't, if you want to be a writer, I don't know if you do, don't worry about it. Just start writing something you see outside, like a painter might do when they're starting to paint something, and then and look around you and see what funny things people do, what odd things, and then also there's a lot of stuff inside you that you might want to come out. So that's all I can say. What about you, Terry?
Well, the thing that I think you said that was really important is what if. And I think any author has to say, what if this happened, or what if that happened? But I have to tell you that all of my books came from something real. Every single one of them came from something that really happened, or that I heard rumors of it happening when I was
Dora Lee came from something real?
Yes.
Ooh.
Absolutely. I mean, well, not her murder, but who she is. And I have to say, I have relatives who love to say to me, oh, I know who this is. They're always wrong. I only have one character that's really just totally based on
someone real. Yeah.
Yes, someone real. Yes. So, other questions?
Yes. Would you feel comfortable genre jumping?
I've already done that.
How about you, Terry?
Absolutely. I'm working on a thriller right now, Now, I don't know whether you mean genre jumping. If I had the talent, I would write science fiction. I love science fiction, but I just don't have the mind for it. It just doesn't come to me, and I'm always fascinated when I read good science fiction. How did this person put this together? I just don't know. As for other genres, I don't know. I've tried writing romance, and I just can't write romance. I can't take it seriously. I'm not a romantic person, so yeah, not for me. Yeah.
All right. Here's another question from Leslie. What careers did you both have before you became authors? We can start with Camilla again.
Okay, I worked in the movie business in Italy. I dubbed films. I put sound in the movie in Italy. Most films are not direct sound because they're co-productions. So they might have the lead, might be the female lead is French, the male lead is Italian, the bad guy is German, and they're speaking their own languages while they shoot. And then we go over and we would put an Italian soundtrack on them. And that's what I did that for 17 years.
Wow.
In Rome, in Italy, yeah.
That sounds wonderful. How about you, Terry?
Oh, I had a much more pedestrian background. I was in the computer business for many years, and that's how I started writing. And I would just, computers, I was a computer analyst programmer. And it just didn't feed my imagination much. So I would, at lunch, go out to my car and write. And eventually I decided I was burned out. So I went into real estate for a while thinking, oh, well, I can do real estate and then I have my own time to write. No, that didn't work very well. So then, yeah, that's what I was doing before I wrote. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for both of you. And then we will end on. But first, I want to give Terry just a chance to talk a little bit more about her books, because anyone who comes in and does a guest moderator spot, I really appreciate them doing that. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about your books and maybe what you're working on next?
Well, Camilla mentioned that she wondered why Samuel was not named Sam. The character of Samuel Craddock is based loosely on my grandfather, and his name was Sam. And I said, I will never call this character Sam, because that's my grandfather, and Samuel is going to be his real name. And his real name was Samuel, but no one called him Samuel. So I said, okay, the character is Samuel. My grandfather is Sam. Each of the books comes, as I said, from something either real that happened, like the fourth book, for example, A Deadly Affair at Bobtail Ridge. My mother once told me that my grandmother told her that she thought, I hope I'm not going to get into trouble here, that she thought her older son, had killed his first wife.
You're not giving anything away, are you?
No. And the book was born. I started thinking how interesting that was. The sixth book, which is the prequel, is actually from something that actually happened in the small town that this is based on in Texas, Somerville, Texas. There was a brutal murder of 5 people who lived outside of town. It was in all the newspapers, and I had kept the clippings, and I thought, I would like to write something about that. So I reread some articles about it, and I discovered that a year before I started writing, that the man who had been convicted of these crimes had just been exonerated by the Innocence Project, which was absolutely fascinating. It meant I didn't want to make this. I didn't want to make it too much like the real story, but it gave me a very meaty story to work from. So yeah, these the one that have just now is set in a motorcycle rally out at the lake at this small town, and it was a lot of fun to write. So we'll see. I don't know exactly when it's coming out, and I don't even really have
a title.
That's just it. I don't have a great title for it. It's like mayhem at the Jubilee rally or something. You know, I don't know exactly what it is. The titles are very hard to come up with these books.
Agreed.
Yeah, they are. So,
all right. So my last question is, if you could have dinner with any character from literature, living or dead, who would it be?
Virginia Woolf.
ooh, any character from literature? Do you mean a fictional character or a regular?
Like a fictional
writer?
character.
Oh, a fictional
You,
character.
you can do either. You can do either. I mean, I like Virginia Woolf as an answer, so we can just say a character from literature, and you can call an author a character too.
Okay. I'll stick to Virginia.
I want to meet Elvis Cole. Robert Craig's character.
I wonder why.
I'd rather meet Joe Pike, but that's just me.
Oh, let me tell you, I was at a conference and Robert was talking about, Bob Craze was talking about Joe Pike, and I raised my hand and I said, well, I mean, I'm talking about Elvis Cole, and I said, well, I'm a Pike woman myself, and he said, oh, you're one of those.
Yeah. I'm unabashedly one of those, so it's all good.
The bad boys, you like the bad boys.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, on that light note, it has been an absolute delight listening to the two of you talk this evening.
Thank you.
I recommend all of these books to those of you who are watching. There's a link in the comments if you're interested in finding out more or ordering them. And thanks to everyone for watching. I'm going to go ahead and log us off for the night before
Let me just say thank you to Camilla. That was great fun.
Thank you, Terry.
It was wonderful meeting you.
Thank you.
It was, yes, thanks all around, and everyone did a wonderful job. And I'm going to say good evening and sign us off. Bye.
Bye-bye.